Everybody, Todd Jason here, and we're going to have some fun today because we're going to review a video of the great and late Kobe Bryant. Now, you've heard me talk a lot about the great spiritual teachers that I've had the honor and the blessing to work with, people like Gartole, Deepak Chopra. I've worked with these folks. I've been a student of these folks, but some of the greatest wisdom that I've ever found that has helped me in my life find the motivation and the mindset to achieve more than I thought I could come from great athletes. Kobe Bryant is famous for having the Mamba Mentality, which we're going to talk about here. And I'm going to play this video. And then as we go through it, I'm going to give a couple of practices to ground this in. Now, Kobe is now passed. It was devastating when we lost him. He died in a tragic helicopter accident. And I remember I cried deeply that day. And I think it wasn't just the loss of him as a basketball player. It was a loss of somebody who was so on fire about exploring and unlocking and realizing his full potential. And when we lose someone who is just so clear and on fire and direct and willing to do everything that it takes, it affects us emotionally. So I'm doing this video in honor of Kobe, in honor of the Mamba Mentality, and I hope you get a lot of value out of this. So let's go and listen to Kobe.
The passion came from the love for the game. I loved everything about it. The smell of the ball, the smell of like brand new sneakers, like the sound the ball makes when it hits the ground, ball going through the net, like all those things I love. And so the passion comes from that. Once you have that love, you just want to be a part of this thing all the time. I was born to play basketball. You know what I mean? And I played a lot of different sports, but nothing brought me the sense of peace and of escape that the game of basketball. I had goals, I had expectations and things I wanted to accomplish, and so like the outside world could not meet that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted to win like 5, 6, 7 championships. That was my goal. For me to come out and say that, people would think I was a lunatic, so no matter what they said or what they threw at me, my expectations were certainly higher. But you can't control that passion, man. Sometimes you just kind of have a fire. You need to keep those flames.
Yeah.
Man, nothing you can do about it. Like you don't really have much of a choice. Like you wake up in the morning and you go, even if you tried to dial it back, it'll just build up, and then it'll just like come out 10 times worse than it was before.
Even in these first 2 minutes, there's so much gems here. And he had this passion. He found this game of basketball that he was so passionate about at an early age. And that drove him. And for most of us, we don't have that passion. We get magnetized by professional athletes or actors or people that have a very, very clear line in front of them that they want to achieve. Yet most of us are living with ambiguous results in our lives because we don't have that clarity or we haven't found that passion. And this is why Kobe's message is just so clear and why he was able to achieve the level of success that he had, because he was just magnetized by the clarity. And I challenge you to think about what would magnetize you and drive you to get that passion so you could get through all the discomfort and the hard work to achieve the bigger goal. And the second piece that's just so important is once he found that passion, he created an absurd or an outrageous vision or goal about it. Hey, I want to win 5, 6, or 7 championships. Absolutely. This is why I love Kobe Bryant, because he was a big thinker, a big vision thinker. He just put it out there. It's like, look, I want to be the best. I want to have an absurd goal. So we got to aim high in life. And so whatever you're dealing with right now, whatever your goals are and what you want to do, I want you thinking about this right now. How can I aim even higher? What is the most absurd thing that I could think of happening in my life, in my work, in my relationships, in my health, in my adventures that is beyond my dream? Just put it out there energetically and let's see what we can magnetize the way.
There's a quote from one of my English teachers at Lower Merion named Mr. Fisk. He had a great quote that said, "Rest at the end, not in the middle." And that's something I always live by. I'm not going to rest. I'm going to keep on pushing now. There are a lot of answers that I don't have, even questions that I don't have. But I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going, and I'll figure these things out as we go, right? And you just continue to build that way. So I try to live by that all the time.
What was really your work ethic like, and for how long did you stay disciplined?
Well, I mean, every day. Since 20 years, it was an everyday process and trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses. For example, jumping ability. Now, my vertical was a 40, wasn't a 46 or 40, 45. My hands are big, but they're not massive. right? So you got to figure out ways to strengthen them so your hands are strong enough to be able to palm a ball and do the things that you need to do. Quickness, I was quick, but not insanely quick. I was fast, but not ridiculously fast, right? So I had to rely on skill a lot more. I had to rely on angles a lot more. I had to study the game a lot more. And, but I enjoyed it though. So like from the time I can't remember when I started watching the game, I studied the game and it just never changed.
What does losing feel like to you?
It's exciting.
Why is it exciting?
Because it means you have different, ways to get better. There's certain things that you can figure out that you can take advantage of, right? Certain weaknesses that were exposed, that you need to shore up, right? So it was exciting. I mean, it sucks to lose,
Right.
but the hardest thing is to face that stuff.
You can see why I share this video. There's so much gems in here. And the first thing that he shared that I want to highlight is just his number one, going back to what he first said of getting that big vision, finding that passion, and then just going for it every day, not having all the answers, just being in action. Kobe Bryant was curious. Kobe Bryant went for it every day. And he said, I didn't have a lot of the answers. I didn't even know what the questions were. What a beautiful, enlightened thing to say, which is why he really found a recipe of success here that led to such greatness. The next piece that I think is just so fascinating is, so once you have this mentality, this Mamba mentality of like, all right, I have a passion, I have a big vision, and I'm going to go for it every day without being attached to the results. I'm now going to get tactical. I'm now going to go into the trenches. And he looked at himself and his body and his hands for basketball. This was his skill. And he's like, all right, there's things that I have as strengths and things that I have as weaknesses. And my job now is to use my brain and figure out how I can figure out how to be the best. So it's really a holistic, comprehensive approach to being great. He's not just counting on one thing. He's using all of himself. He's using his spiritual prowess. He's using his emotional prowess. He's using his drive and his determination. And he's also using his analytical mind to figure out what he can do to actually get better. And then when he was asked, what do you think about losing? I was surprised when I first heard him say it's exciting. But then it makes sense, doesn't it? Because losing is an opportunity for him. And for great people, for people that really win, they always see the loss as their opportunity to grow. And it's so much easier said than done. And how often do we get sidetracked and we beat ourselves up and berate ourselves by not achieving the greatness? But for Kobe, for people like him, this is really the opportunity to look at yourself and self-reflect and figure out what I need to do to get better. And that adds in more of the drive and more of the passion. So just such wisdom in this philosophy.
Before you start a game, how can you lock in and get into that mental space where nothing else matters? You're completely locked in and focused on what you're trying to accomplish as an athlete out here. The noise of the crowd doesn't matter. Whether the cheering or booing doesn't matter. You're just completely locked in. How do you do that? If we're talking about, a basketball decision where read a certain coverage or something like that, I mean, a lot of that comes from the pre-work and understanding what their defensive package is and how to put teammates in certain situations. For example, if you look at players nowadays that are charged with taking game-winning shots, making game-winning decisions, and you look at the play and then you look at it and say, okay, well, that shooter was there, the double team came, and, the player couldn't do anything but pass the ball, right? Well, that's because they didn't do the pre-work. So when you do the pre-work, you understand, okay, this team in this situation likes to run a double team from this particular angle. All right, so I'm going to clear that side out, force the double team to come from a different angle, move myself to a space on the floor where it's going to take a long time for the double team to come. And now I can circumvent the double team and get to a place on the floor where I can knock down a shot or get to the basket. So it's all that pre-work.
All right. And the final point I want to make and share here, and again, just grateful to be honoring Kobe Bryant and just the gift that he brought into this world, man. We miss you, brother, man. You were just so freaking amazing. Was the pre-work. And this guy was just disciplined, wasn't he? When he showed up in Game 7, this wasn't just showing up on a whim. This guy was prepped. This guy was prepared. This guy had done everything beforehand. So that way, when it came to Game 7, it was an easy experience. And I share that here to have you think about right now, the lines in your life that you want to be the most successful and have the most joy, the things that you need to work on. How much are you really doing that pre-work? How much time and energy are you spending contemplating the success of what's in store for you and the potential failure. This is what great athletes do. They spend all this time prepping so that way when you get to the big stage, you have the best chance of succeeding. And if you don't, again, it's an opportunity. So thanks for listening. I hope you love this. Leave a comment, give a like to the video if you thought this was useful. And again, just grateful to be able to share Kobe's wonderful words of wisdom.